and welcome back to Sarah's Music. To describe my guest today as simply a star violinist is not enough. He's an author, a broadcaster, a musical activist, a festival director, an orchestra director, and he's also a dad. I'm really happy to welcome the multi-talented Daniel Hope to the program. Today we're in Berlin at the Konzerthaus on the Gendarmenmarkt, where there is a very special festival going on which Daniel has helped to organize. The late great violinist, some say the greatest violinist of all time, Yehudi Menuhin, would have turned 100 this year. Yehudi Menuhin and Daniel Hope have a very special connection, and to celebrate him, Daniel has not only helped create this festival, he has also recorded an album in honor of his mentor. I admire Daniel so much for all he does for our classical music world and was very happy to see him in person here in Berlin. Daniel, I know everybody asks you this, but how do you manage to fit it all in?
In the meantime, it's a huge team around the world that helps and supports me, and with that team, of course, my wife is a big part. She's able to also allow me to do certain things, and we travel a lot together because I want my son to be around, especially at this time. And I guess it's just this love of music that keeps me going from morning till night.
But you still have to come up with all the ideas for your books, for your festivals, for your programs. Incredible.
Those seem to come very quickly. That's not the problem. It's making them happen. As you know, with projects, it's always one thing to think of the idea, but to follow it through. I mean, I've been speaking to Norman Perryman for years about actually getting together. This is the first time. So sometimes these projects take really, many years.
The artist Norman Perryman also worked closely with Yehudi Menuhin. Norman paints on glass plates placed on a series of overhead projectors and interprets music visually in real time. Today, he and Daniel are interpreting together the Violin Sonata by William Walton. This piece was composed for Yehudi Menuhin. Speaking of the homage to your mentor, Yehudi Menuhin, you've told this story many times in all your interviews about him, but I love to hear it. Tell me how you met him.
Well, my father is a writer, and in the 70s he was fiercely anti-apartheid. He wrote books against the apartheid government. His writings were banned, was put onto a blacklist. And basically, my parents had no other choice but to leave the country, and they were given a so-called exit permit, which meant they could leave but never return. And we ended up firstly in Paris, and then from there in London, where very quickly our money ran out. And my mother needed to try and find some kind of work to keep us there. My father was working on his first book at the time, And one night she met the director of a temp agency, and he said, I have two very high-powered jobs. One is the secretary to the Archbishop of Canterbury, and the other one is the secretary to Yehudi Menuhin. And even though my parents are not musicians, they of course admired and loved music, and they knew of Menuhin. And my mother said, how can it be? You know, managing a musician must be like managing anything else. The first thing that happened was he said, pack your things, we're going to Gstaad, where I have my festival, and we'll spend 2 months there. And she said, but I have young kids. And he said, no, I would never separate, a mother from her children. You bring everybody. And he found an apartment for us, and she would go to work in his house, either in Gstaad or in London. And she would take me there. My father was writing, and I was very unruly as a child, and he needed peace and quiet, and so she would take me there, and I would play, and grew up the first 7-8 years in his house, listening, of course, to him, but also to all the other musicians who came. And the amazing thing about Yehudi was that, his love of music just was limitless, and every style of music was fair game. So you had Ravi Shankar, you had Stefan Grappelli, but you would also have a Rostropovich or a Wilhelm Kempff. He didn't draw distinctions between music categories, and so it was just immersing myself in music. So when I said to my parents at the age of 4, I want to be a violinist, they weren't terribly surprised.
Music communication was so important to Yehudi Menuhin. Do you think you would have been proud of all your communication skills?
Well, I certainly hope so. I mean, we were lucky. I was incredibly lucky to work with him for the last 10 years of his life. But I was just starting out at that time. I started as a student, and until the time I was about 25, which was actually his very last concert, I started slowly to grow as an artist and started to have very small sort of success here and there. But I think about him constantly, of course, and he is an inspiration in so many things that he did. I mean, Live Music Now is an amazing organization that he founded, that he created, that helps people and brings young artists to people that don't have the chance to experience music. So people in hospitals, old age homes, or mentally handicapped.
It's normal for us today to do that as classical musicians. It's just one part of what we do, but when he started it, it wasn't.
It was revolutionary. The same way that him playing as a classical violinist with Ravi Shankar in the 1960s, before we ever even had this horrible word crossover, he was a pioneer in so many ways. And so I did learn enormously from him, and I always take his credo, which is that you can use music in order to make a statement, and you can use it in a social context. It's playing is the greatest thing, as we know, but sharing and communicating is as important for me.
That's all from Sarah's Music for today. I'm looking forward to the music and to the painting, and looking forward to seeing you next time on Sarah's Music. So today we have the Kinetic Horn Challenge. We have live graphics by Norman Perryman and Horn Challenge by Daniel Hope. Are you ready for this?
I'm going to try. Good Lord.
Right, Norman, you ready? Yeah. Okay.
Man. That was a piece by Karl-Heinz Stockhausen. Arranged by Harrison Birtwistle.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.